there actually was a great flood, and that at one point in the history of this planet, all life was wiped out.
Truly global cataclysmic events involving rapid rises in sea level did occur, and suddenly the worldwide tradition of a global flood stops being just a myth and starts being a memory, an account of real events.
Long ago, a great flood swept over the earth, wiping everything, including Adam and Eve. Even God, depicted in the Bible as the master builder who skillfully created the universe and later took human form as Jesus, couldn't prevent this ancient destruction. Today, experts tirelessly study the prehistoric world, driven by a fear that such a devastating flood could happen again. Why are scientists so concerned about this event? Join us as we explore the reasons why our planet could once more face devastating, catastrophic floods. Long ago, a great flood swept over the earth, wiping everything, including Adam and Eve. Even God, depicted in the Bible as the master builder who skillfully created the universe and later took human form as Jesus, couldn't prevent this ancient destruction. Today, experts tirelessly study the prehistoric world, driven by a fear that such a devastating flood could happen again. Why are scientists so concerned about this event? Join us as we explore the reasons why our planet could once more face devastating, catastrophic floods. The cosmic craftsman. Before the huge flood mentioned in the Bible, there was a period known as the pre-flood era. This time is often pictured as a paradise where the first humans, Adam and Eve, lived in peace. Yet, this tranquil scene is overshadowed by the tale of a serpent and a forbidden fruit, which marks the start of human mistakes according to biblical stories. The Bible often uses familiar images to depict divine activities. It likens God to a carpenter, a job he is said to have had during his time as Jesus on earth. This comparison comes up again when God talks to Job out of a whirlwind. He scolds Job for questioning his actions and uses terms linked to building and construction, stressing God's role as the creator of everything. This discussion also shows angels as witnesses to creation, watching how everything came to be. As the Genesis story goes on, God creates the firmament, a dome that divides the water above from the water below. This creation is meant to bring order to the world. It's thought to explain natural things like why the sky is blue or why it gets dark at night, connecting them to God's actions. Originally, the earth didn't have big oceans, but rather smaller bodies of water known as seas or lakes. This detail helps simplify our understanding of early geography. The story also covers how plants grew before the flood. They weren't watered by rain, but by mist rising from the earth, sourced from waters heated by the planet's inner warmth. This way of watering plants is shown as a lead-up to the Great Flood, described as happening when these same underground waters burst through the Earth's surface, joined by water falling from the sky. This recounting of the pre-flood world isn't just a backdrop for human origin stories or theological discussions. It portrays the world as a stage for divine action, where every natural law and geological feature fits into a larger, divinely planned story. Whether one views this as a meaningful spiritual truth or as a piece of ancient literary craftsmanship depends on individual perspectives, but the lasting interest in these stories shows their deep influence on human thought and culture. The text describes the story from the Bible about the beginning of humanity with Adam and Eve, situated in a garden called Eden, which is detailed meticulously with its rivers and resources. The story is fundamental to many beliefs, teaching about the consequences of disobedience and the roots of human suffering. In the beginning, the Garden of Eden was a place of absolute abundance and peace, where everything was provided for Adam and Eve. The only restriction placed upon them was to avoid eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This single prohibition was clear, yet it became the critical turning point in their lives. Eve, who was fashioned from one of Adam's ribs to serve as his partner and equal, soon finds herself in a pivotal dialogue with a sly serpent. The serpent, with its cunning words, convinces her to doubt the instructions given by God. This conversation leads to a fateful decision, as both she and Adam choose to taste the forbidden fruit. Consuming the fruit brings a rush of awareness, but at a grave cost. They suddenly recognize their own nudity and are overwhelmed by a sense of shame, a feeling entirely new to them. This moment signifies the end of their innocence and the start of a more complicated human existence. When God discovers their transgression, a tense exchange follows. Each party deflects blame. Adam blames Eve. Eve blames the serpent. The serpent receives a harsh curse, doomed to slither on its belly and consume dust, reflecting its degraded status from then on. As for Adam and Eve, they are clothed in garments made from animal skins, signifying the first instance of sacrifice necessitated by human missteps. Ultimately, they are exiled from the paradise of Eden, sentenced to a life of toil on the very earth from which they were formed. This expulsion is marked by an extraordinary measure. A cherubim armed with a blazing sword is stationed at the entrance to Eden, underscoring the severity of their disobedience and ensuring they cannot return. This powerful image seals the garden's fate as inaccessible, preserving its sanctity but also highlighting the enduring consequences of Adam and Eve's choices. The story of their fall from grace introduces enduring themes of human frailty, the harsh realities of divine justice, and the ongoing conflict between innate human curiosity and the obligation to adhere to divine commands. It paints a vivid portrait of the first moral dilemma and its repercussions, which echo throughout human history. Let's move from our first discoveries to times when the world was younger and tales of great ages unfold. Divine flood versus Permian extinction. The stories from the Bible. It is said that people lived for hundreds of years before the flood, enjoying long lives because they were closer to the state of perfection they had in the Garden of Eden. Over time, however, as sin became more common among people, their health and lifespans declined. This idea connects religious teachings with the concept of human aging and deterioration. When discussing Pangea, we're discussing a theory proposed by Alfred Wegener in 1912. He suggested that long ago, all the Earth's continents were joined together into one giant landmass, surrounded by a single ocean. According to this theory, over millions of years, Pangea split apart to form the continents and oceans we know today. This theory is widely accepted in the scientific community because of the evidence supporting it. From a biblical perspective, the Earth was also thought to be a single landmass before the Great Flood. This land configuration is mentioned as being crucial for all animals to gather at Noah's Ark, as described in the book of Genesis. The story suggests that such a landmass made it possible for every species to survive the flood by reaching the Ark. However, secular views of the Earth's history during what is called the Permian period present a different picture. Scientists believe this time was characterized by a variety of large plants and animals thriving in a warm climate due to melting ice caps. Major extinctions during this time are attributed to natural disasters and environmental changes, not a singular event like the biblical flood. It's interesting to see how both the religious and scientific communities use the concept of a unified ancient Earth. However, they do so to support very different ideas. One speaks of a divine flood and the other of natural evolutionary processes. Some might argue that religious explanations sometimes borrow elements from science to validate their own stories, shaping the facts to fit religious teachings. Additionally, the story from the Book of Numbers about Moses bringing water from a rock highlights the theme of divine control over nature found in religious texts. This event is used to reinforce faith through miraculous occurrences, which stands in contrast to science, where findings are based on repeated experiments and observations. While combining biblical accounts with scientific theories offers a rich area for exploration, it also demands careful analysis to avoid confusion. It is important to distinguish clearly between faith-based beliefs and scientifically proven facts. Maintaining this distinction helps ensure that discussions about our world's history respect both religious beliefs and scientific principles. Therefore, examining these narratives side by side shows the complexities of blending religious faith with scientific understanding. This comparison not only enriches our perspective on human history, but also challenges us to think critically about how we interpret and understand the past. It's essential to navigate these discussions thoughtfully, respecting the insights and limitations of both religious and scientific viewpoints. Long ago, the Earth was much warmer than it is today, turning many areas into swampy, mist-covered regions. This hot, damp environment was perfect for growing a lot of plants, which increased the oxygen in the air. Higher oxygen levels helped some animals, especially reptiles, grow to enormous sizes. Among these giant creatures, according to some tales, were dragons. Dragons are featured in stories from around the world, where brave individuals or groups would fight them to earn fame and respect. The King James Bible mentions dragons 34 times, suggesting they were once real animals. Some verses speak of dragons in a way that makes them seem like living creatures that existed alongside people. For example, the Bible says that dragons would honor God because he provided water in dry places to keep his people alive. Other verses talk about overcoming dragons as a sign of strength and righteousness. Even dictionaries describe dragons as real. The 1828 version of Webster's American Dictionary listed dragons as actual living animals. It said that dragons had 4 legs, a long tail, and wings like those of a flying fish. But as time went on and the theory of evolution became popular in schools, the bones and fossils of these so-called dragons started being called dinosaur bones. This change happened around the time people began seriously discussing evolution, a theory many felt clashed with religious teachings. A look at an 1880 edition of Webster's Dictionary shows no mention of the word dinosaur, even though the term was created in 1841 by Richard Owen. He came up with the name from 2 Greek words meaning terrible lizard. Although the term dinosaur was new, the concept of giant, fearsome reptiles was not. Before the term dinosaur existed, people might have referred to these creatures as dragons, based on their large size and intimidating appearance. Now, from ancient Earth to the myths and realities that challenge our understanding, we continue. The turning point in human-animal relations. This debate shows how history, science, and old tales can mix together, making it hard to separate fact from fiction. People who see dragons as real animals argue that our understanding of the ancient world is influenced by how we interpret evidence and what theories we are willing to believe. Whether you see this as uncovering hidden truths or reinterpreting facts to fit modern theories, it definitely makes us think about how we understand our world's history. In the 1800s, paleontologists were eager to make a name for themselves. They put together bones from different animals and called them new species. Many of these discoveries had to be corrected later because they were essentially made-up creatures. It's like putting together parts of different toys and saying you've created something new. Many of these bones were found together in large quantities, scattered around the world like a global graveyard. This could have happened because of a huge disaster, which many believe was the biblical flood. Such an event would have scattered remains everywhere, mixing them up. Now, if we look at the story of Noah's Ark from the Bible, we face some tough questions. How could all kinds of animals, including large and dangerous ones, live together peacefully on the ark? According to the Bible, after the flood, things on earth changed dramatically. Before the flood, animals and humans lived together without fear. After the flood, animals began to fear humans, and this new rule helped Noah and his family manage all the animals on the ark. The Bible says in Genesis 9 that God made animals fear humans to help them survive in a world where humans would now rule. Before this, animals weren't dangerous to people. But after the flood, this relationship changed, leading to a world where even animals would hunt each other and humans. This fear was necessary because the world had become a more dangerous place. The first murder happened when Cain killed his brother Abel, showing that violence had entered human life. This violence among humans and the new fear in animals were both results of the flood and the new conditions on Earth. Some people think that only young, smaller animals were brought onto the ark. This would mean they needed less space and food. This idea also suggests that bringing young animals would prevent fights between different species because they hadn't grown aggressive yet. We see examples in modern times of young animals from different species growing up together peacefully. After leaving the Garden of Eden, the story of Cain and Abel shows more about human nature. Cain's jealousy led to the murder of his brother. This story highlights how sin had become a part of human life, and now it influenced people's actions deeply. Before this, evil was something external, but now it had become a part of people's inner lives. When Cain was punished for his crime, he was afraid others would kill him. This fear led to the belief that there were already other people living in places like the land of Nod. This idea is controversial, and some think it's a misunderstanding of the Bible. The stories from the Bible and the discoveries of paleontologists in the 1800s show us how humans have always tried to understand the world around them. Whether it's figuring out the past from fossils or learning from ancient texts, these efforts reflect our ongoing desire to make sense of our environment and our history. Each tale, whether it's about assembling dinosaur bones or surviving a flood on an ark, tells us about the challenges and changes that humans and animals have faced together. The Bible initially presents itself as a continuous flow of text, only divided by the titles of its books. This format allows for both broad overviews and detailed accounts of events as seen in the early chapters of Genesis. These chapters first outline the creation story and then delve into the specifics, such as the lineage and deeds of Adam's descendants. Yet, these calculations might still be conservative. Other ancient texts, known as the Apocrypha, speak of fallen angels who corrupted human and animal genetics. This interference could have increased the population further, possibly explaining the extensive evil and corruption noted in later texts. The building of cities after the flood is often shown in a negative light. For instance, the city Cain builds is associated with the start of many societal problems, including the worship of false idols and general moral decline. This pattern of founding cities leading to moral decay is a recurring theme. Next, we go back to see the early influencers of human history. The Watcher Angels' descent. Genealogies within Genesis also highlight significant advancements. Cain's descendants were not just survivors, they were pioneers. Jabal was the first to make tents from animal hides. Jubal created musical instruments, and Tubal-Cain became a master of working with metal. These innovations suggest a high level of societal development and imply that such knowledge could have had divine origins. Interestingly, the use of simple tools like tongs in celestial events, such as a seraphim using them to handle hot coals in the prophet Isaiah's purification, suggests that even heavenly beings might utilize human inventions. Despite these advancements, the narrative conveys a critical view of technological progress, often associating it with moral backsliding. The story of Lamech, a descendant of Cain, who boasts of killing a man and threatening disproportionate revenge, underscores the violent tendencies within Cain's lineage. The birth of Seth, and later his son Enos, marks a turning point where some begin to seek divine connection, contrasting sharply with the rampant wickedness of the era. This marks a clear division in society between those striving for goodness and those descending further into wrongdoing. As we follow the progression through Genesis, it becomes evident that while human civilization was advancing in terms of technology and culture, it was struggling with increasing moral challenges. The narratives serve as a reminder of the dual nature of progress, bringing both improvements and trials to human society. Thus, the Bible not only documents the early days of humanity, but also offers lessons on the complex interaction between human innovation and ethical integrity. The genealogy presented in Genesis chapter 5, we see Jared fathering Enoch at 162 years old, and after that, he lives for another 800 years, during which he has more children. By the time of his death, Jared was 962 years old. This chapter, while primarily listing family lines, sets the stage for an unusual event with the descent of the Watcher Angels. These angels, not content with their heavenly abode, come down to earth with a disruptive agenda, driven by darker forces to meddle with human affairs. According to the Book of Enoch, these celestial beings were captivated by human women and decided to marry some of them. This decision was controversial, even among the angels themselves. Shemjaza, their leader, was initially reluctant, understanding the gravity of their actions, but eventually they all agreed to commit to their plan, binding themselves with solemn promises to ensure none would back out. This part of the narrative leads into the well-known story of Noah's Ark in Genesis 7. Here, Noah, following divine instructions, builds an ark that serves as a refuge for his family and pairs of every living creature. As the flood begins, the waters rise significantly, submerging the earth and cleansing it of the widespread corruption brought about by both humans and these rebellious angels. The flood narrative emphasizes the severity of the deluge, with waters rising so high that even mountains are submerged. This event marks a profound turning point, effectively resetting the balance of creation. It's a dramatic response to the profound moral failures represented by earlier events, including the illicit actions of the Watcher angels. Towards the end of this passage, there's a sudden shift towards a discussion of the fossil record, which poses a question about what physical evidence exists that might support or contradict the events described in these biblical accounts. This shift introduces a scientific perspective to the ancient stories, bridging the gap between religious texts and geological evidence. This combination of divine narratives and scientific inquiry invites us to examine the historical and factual basis of these ancient stories. While the biblical texts provide a theological explanation for events like the flood, the reference to fossils prompts a consideration of how these stories might be grounded in the real world. It challenges us to think about how much of our past can be understood through scriptures versus scientific exploration. This exploration of ancient texts alongside modern science serves not only to enrich our understanding of these events, but also to question and analyze the complexities of interpreting history through various lenses. Certainly, the story of a global flood covering even the highest mountains like Everest, which stands nearly 30,000 feet tall, supports the biblical tale of a world submerged underwater. Everest, where the air is thin and the cold severe, is covered with numerous fossils of marine life and coral reefs. According to the Bible, on a specific day in Noah's life, the fountains of the Great Deep burst forth, indicating a significant disruption of the Earth's crust. This idea suggests a dramatic reshaping of the planet, challenging the usual scientific explanation that continents drift apart slowly over millions of years. Trey Smith, in his video Pre-Flood World, disputes this conventional view, suggesting that the dramatic events described in religious texts are consistent with the physical scars we see on the ocean floor today. Let's now uncover what lies beneath, exploring hidden histories and changed landscapes. Man-made or natural? Smith argues that these scars were created by massive underwater explosions that sent water shooting up into the sky. When it fell back to Earth, it fell with enough force to create our mountain ranges and oceanic trenches. Smith's detailed explanations are available online for those interested in exploring this viewpoint further. After the supposed flood, the violent movements of the Earth were so intense that they buried not only people, but also the cities they lived in under thick layers of mud and debris. This aspect of the discussion approaches the idea of submerged cities, similar to the legendary Atlantis, which are said to be hidden beneath the ocean, a subject to be explored more fully another time. Moreover, it is often claimed that the names we give to these underwater sites and the artifacts found there are not chosen by chance. They are thought to reflect a conscious effort to connect these names to past structures and functions, suggesting that these names help preserve a record of history. This approach offers a clear contrast to the evolutionary view, which sees such developments as gradual and unspectacular. The sudden and dramatic changes suggested by the flood narrative prompt a re-evaluation of our understanding of Earth's historical and geological development, inviting a reconsideration of how quickly and dramatically the Earth's surface can change. When we see unusual rock formations with names like door, arch, window, or gateway, it's hard not to wonder if these were once actual structures. Over time, dirt and mud have buried them, turning what might have been carefully placed blocks into what we now mistake for mere stones shaped by nature. Look closely at these formations. The angles are suspiciously sharp, the columns unnaturally straight. Such precision suggests they were made by human hands, not just by wind and water wearing down the stone. This idea might seem a bit far-fetched, but these signs are too strong to ignore completely. It's often easier to accept that all strange rock shapes are crafted by natural processes, years upon years of environmental factors sculpting the landscape. However, the specific names and the structured look of these formations could indeed point to a different story. They might actually be the remains of buildings from a time long before our recorded history, perhaps from a time before great floods changed the landscape dramatically. Discussing these formations isn't about causing a stir or throwing away all previous scientific understanding. Instead, it's about opening up to the possibility that our planet's history might be more complex than we currently acknowledge. These rocks, with their seemingly purposeful design, could be evidence of ancient human activity that predates the oldest civilizations we know. By suggesting that these might be more than natural formations, we invite everyone to look at the world around us with fresh eyes. It's important to question and reconsider our assumptions about the past. Recognizing that what we often take for natural geological formations could actually be ancient man-made structures challenges us to rethink not just history, but also the processes that shape our understanding of the world. While this topic is gigantic and could be explored in much more detail in other formats like videos or specialized studies, introducing these ideas now is crucial. It encourages a broader conversation about our interpretations of geological formations and human history. This isn't just about revising history. It's about broadening our understanding of human capability and the Earth's transformation over millennia. Our times, we continue to explore these old stories, using them to reflect on our own society's issues and the risks we face today. Despite advancements in science and human thought, it seems we are facing similar kinds of turmoil, indicating that perhaps we haven't learned as much from our past as we might think. Many believe in the eventual arrival of a savior who will come to restore order, which offers some hope. This belief emphasizes the importance of turning to Christ, seeking forgiveness for one's sins, and building a relationship with the Savior. It is a dramatic call for commitment, suggesting that there will be no chance for redemption once it is too late, much like when the doors of Noah's Ark were closed. Does the discovery of Moses' tomb challenge traditional biblical histories? Comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content.